Here are some pages from a project manager's notebook that I found in the attic. This notebook page was called The Cone of Uncertainty. Projects are full of decision-making moments, and some of the most important ones are actually before the project has even started, in the preliminary stages, when outlines are being defined. This is the time when scope and high-level requirements are defined and a budget is being set. This cone of uncertainty, you can visualize it as a horizontal V-shaped curve that describes how estimates of budget and/or time become more accurate as more information becomes available, obviously with time and as the project progresses. When the project is finished, one usually knows exactly what it cost. But how do we deal with the inevitable margin of error in the early or original estimates? Based on experience and knowledge of the industry or the subject matter and some rules of thumb, we often make an educated guess about the probable budget that would be needed to implement some initial list of usually quite high-level requirements. And I've been in situations where power play was used to force an agreement on quite vague requirements and an all too limited budget, with obviously enthusiastic return of investment expectations on top of that all. Everyone knew it very well, but there was no way to open a conversation about uncertainty in that corporate culture. And then, of course, no surprise, after several weeks or maybe several months, all kinds of nasty details and difficulties were surfacing as the team is starting to refine the requirements, making the designs, and working hard to implement them. What happened? Slippage of cost and of schedule. The logical next thing. Making decisions, people are usually overly optimistic, and they tend to take risks because of the expectation of returns. We overestimate the benefits, we underestimate the risks. Underestimation of risk comes from the "what you see is all there is" fallacy. It's our innate tendency to assume that what we don't see just doesn't exist. And with to see, I also mean what comes to mind easily, seeing before your mind's eye. So we all tend to look mainly at the known knowns. We quite easily overlook the known unknowns, and we rarely ever consider the existence of the unknown unknowns, which is why we have a good word for them: surprises. This "what you see is all there is" fallacy also applies to requirements in projects, of course. In the early stages of a project, the wording and the concepts that we use for our project requirements are sufficiently generic and high level that all the details and complexities remain hidden. And then the work of the project is to get that on top, unearthed and unhidden. So we might describe a software feature in a phrase something like, "We need a calendar pop-up for selecting working days." Sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? But when you start thinking of it, it hides a lot of detail, like the various types of calendar that there might be, like the Western/Christian, or the Jewish, or the Islamic, or the astronomical. And then within the Western calendars, there's variations like the Julian, the Gregorian, Ethiopian. And there's various sets of non-working days, for instance, depending on the national holidays. So that would depend on geography. You see, a calendar pop-up for selecting working days, it's not as easy as it sounds. There is no escaping this "what you see is all there is" fallacy. As an example, here is a snippet from a press release from September 30, 1999 from CNN. And I quote, NASA lost a $125 million Mars orbiter because a Lockheed Martin engineer team used English units of measurement while the agency's team used a more conventional metric system for a key spacecraft operation, according to a review finding released last Thursday. End of quote. So that project must have had a requirement to measure the distance from Earth to the orbiter, hiding all the details that various systems of measurement exist. And when you use inches and yards every day, then that is all you see and all there is. Executing a project is essentially a process of reducing the cone of uncertainty. First of all, with respect to the requirements and what it takes to implement them, and as a consequence with respect to the budget that's needed to do all that work. So you'd better make sure to take an approach that acknowledges this what you see is all there is brain bias that we all have, and take an approach that consciously puts a focus to the known unknowns and might even have a provision to deal with the inevitable unknown unknowns. All the agile approaches that I know of have some coherent set of practices to do just that. Please visit projectdoctor.online for more podcasts like these and for additional resources. Thank you for listening.